G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talk Stuff. I'm your host, the author David Applegate, author of the books The Boyhood of Cade, Power Games, Into the Housebound, and The Erotic Tales from the Empire, coming soon. Thank you to all those who support the channel, and I invite you to support the channel through the links in my link tree. You can support me on Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. Now, the Ukraine war has taken an interesting twist. In geopolitics, most people don't know this, but no nations are allies, no nations are forever friends, and in fact, all nations are backstabbing each other all the time. However, the biggest backstabber in the world right now is Winnie the Pooh. And Winnie the Pooh has poked the bear. A defector, who may have actually been a plant to sow political chaos in order for China to measure the political wins. A defector exposed Xi's plan to backstab Russia. Now, I think Putin probably took this into consideration all along, but while the leader was engaged in his usual clandestine summer meeting, in other words, to the people, while they do their opium and their usual debauchery, you know, the usual things they get up to behind closed doors, where lots of ladies make lots of money in a short period of time, and if they're lucky, they live to spend it. But a credible dissident has presented to a shocking picture of Xi Jinping's plans to hold on to power. One, of course, is the smoke and mirrors of the Ukraine war to put pressure on the West to extend the Ukraine war. Initially, it's believed that before launching the war, that Xi got the go-ahead from Putin. Xi gave the go-ahead to Putin to invade Ukraine and to keep the West bogged down for a decade to come. However, as this is coming to an end early, Xi wants a strategic move, to test Putin's loyalty. Now, the test is the following. Putin is to ignore Trump and push through as deep as he can in the Ukraine to engage the Americans and Europeans on the battlefield in a non-nuclear, protracted, limited war. He will then either take Taiwan by force or surround the island and force capitulation through protracted siege. He also plans to isolate the Philippines, Japan, South Korea, and Vietnam, cutting them off from trade and thus bankrupting them to force India's hand and cause trouble to basically call back at least some of those companies that left. Now, and further to prove to Vietnam which side of the bread they think their bread, who's going to provide them with the most butter, he's forced Vietnam to take over 1 million Chinese workers. Vietnam, for a while, has resisted, but it looks like some of these factories are not taking very well-paying jobs, and these are very close to the Chinese border, so they're actually living in China and coming across by train, further upsetting Xi. So things are afoot. But the plan is, if Putin does not engage the West, or Putin loses in Ukraine, Xi's going to seize Siberia because he needs oil, and the oil bottleneck is intensifying. The oil they expected to find in the South China Sea has been dismal, low grade, low volume. Xi feels betrayed. But remember, when the oil was first discovered, the volumes they found back then, well, it excited them because back then the oil was cheaper, right? It was cheaper for them to extract. Sea extraction has become more and more expensive. But the recent discovery in Antarctica has also put Xi in a pickle. She was hoping that, because she was hoping the West would be low on fuel if he could close the Indonesian Straits, which he can't because India and the United States have secured that through trade deals with Indonesia. They can sail in come in under Java, cross through under Australia, and come out the other side. Xi's trying to cut that off in the Torres Straits. That, of course, now has failed. Torres Straits is looking at, and others are looking at limiting the Chinese ports and refueling and non-military visits and no military visits whatsoever. So Xi's now in a pickle because he's played himself. He was hoping that Putin would accept a deal, send the diplomat back, and nothing would be publicly disclosed. Russia instead has decided the third option. Let the cards fall on the table and see who's the highest bidder. But because Lindsey Graham and others want war, particularly those in Europe, they see the opportunity that if China does invade Siberia, which leaves half of Russia in the hands of communists backed by the Chinese army as peacekeepers, Europe will basically be fighting not just to liberate Ukraine, but to liberate Russia and thus gain ultimate control of Russia and also at the same time cripple China. And of course that has the backing of India and other nations. But of course Modi, however, is also playing the two-pronged game. He's with the highest bidder. He wants peace with China because he's not strategically ready, and he wants more rockets off Russia, but because of the war in Ukraine, he's not getting what he wants, and he's worried that China will encircle. He wants to go into Pakistan to stop the Chinese encirclement, and secure and make a deal with the Lashmar that he'll cut Pakistan in half and say it's yours. Make a deal. He's already made a deal with Afghanistan, and Afghanistan is showing their willingness to play ball. They have cut ties with some Chinese companies, particularly a Chinese oil company which was extracting gas and oil from Afghanistan, which is the reason why Russia in the first place went in. But you've got to remember, in 1979 there was a coup, and they were backing Russia and asked Russia to come in to secure those gas and oil pipelines, which later foolishness of the Russians to come in and then expect to have the Taliban go from Islamic fascists to just straight up communists. You can't ask a leopard to change its stripes or spots, whatever you want to call it. Basically, he ain't going to change the nature of the beast. So we have bricks made up of 4 snakes, all trying to undermine Russia. And who's the 4th? So you have Xi, you have Modi, but who's the other snake? Of course, Brazil. They were looking at war with Venezuela until China put men in Venezuela, and now, of course, that somehow all those Venezuelans displaced into Brazil changed the politics of Brazil further left, and now they want to control South America with this new alliance, and they're trying to basically crumble Peru and Colombia. So destabilization in South America to further weaken America. Because we've got to remember, in World War II, America's 1 million troops weren't enough. There was also the 1 million plus out of Canada and South Africa. But there was also the Africa Corps, which mostly Algerians, I believe. So don't think US, because you didn't even come close to the number of people Russia put into that effort. But, as with all things, nothing is set in stone. Because the net result of this backstabbing is the messenger got shot, the messenger got exposed, the rumours about Xi, most of which have been disproven, including the fact that Xi's wife has distanced herself. That is not true. She was busy with a party in a meeting of the wives of party leaders to talk about the next generation of leadership. Then Xi wants to select from young communists a whole host of new leadership initiatives, and he is not planning to step down until his 5th term in office. So he wants to get to a record 5 consecutive terms. He wants to be the longest serving Chinese leader of history. He wants to be the oldest Chinese leader in history. And of course, he wants to be the most successful Chinese leader in history. So whether he has to betray Russia or India or Brazil, he'll do it. But those in kind are all willing to betray each other. Isn't that amazing? Because right now, the BRICS in BRICS, being Russia, could ultimately, with a deal with Trump, become part of a European security guarantee in Ukraine. If the Lindsey Grahams of the world would wise it up, get out of the shadow of the Cold War and the arrogance of bleating that instead of carving up Russia, they should be working with Russia. And yes, but in the world of international politics, just because Russia can't be trusted, neither can France, neither can Germany, neither can England. You've seen how they have utter disdain for their own people. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. Please support the channel. You can support the channel through Patreon. Buy my books, buy my merch. All my links are in the link tree, description below, in my profile, or scan the QR code on the screen. Thank you for listening. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye for now.